yourself. And what you think of yourself depends on what you know of yourself. And what you know of yourself depends on what you've been told of yourself. Welcome, welcome, family. Welcome to the show. We're in this little roller coaster ride for how this weather is concerned, up and down. I remember when I used to do those parades the first weekend in June, and I'd be biting my fingernails all the way up until the parade that first weekend of June. And it seemed like we don't get no good weather up until that last week of Memorial Day weekend. So again, seems like it's going to prove itself to be sure again this year. But we hanging in there, Cleveland. I want to remind you guys to be looking out for some information talking about that African Juneteenth ball. That's going to be the last Sunday in June. So start getting your clothes together. We want to get more brothers out there. It seems like it's been more sisters coming than it is brothers. So come on out there, taste a little African cuisine. That's going to be the last Sunday in June at the Mediterranean Party Center out there in Bedford Heights. So come on out, get prepared, get your regalia together so you can come on out there and celebrate your culture. In the remote studio, we got our main man, Brother Vince. What's going on, Brother Vince?
Well, tomorrow we are going to have artist Elsie Clay at Larchmere Arts. She's going to do a demonstration of her art, and she's got an Afrofuturism exhibition currently in progress. We'll be closing that in just a few weeks, but you can come by tomorrow at 6 o'clock, Larchmere Arts. She's going to show you how she creates that fantastic artwork. And then on next Saturday, we have none other than Elijah Gilmore coming through to perform with yours truly. We're going to do open mic poetry. There's going to be a feature, and we're going to have a good time at Larchmere Arts. So next weekend and this weekend, we got a full slate of activities for Larchmere Arts. And I will also be updating you on the Larchmere Cultural Arts Festival, which will take place this coming July. So a lot of good stuff coming in the wings for Larchmere Arts. Today, we have with us the executive director of the Association of African American Cultural Gardens. He is none other than Obie Shelton. He is no stranger to you all. I'm sure you have seen him on television, or you have seen him standing up playing that magnificent violin that he does. So welcome to 360 Info Network, our good brother, Obie Shelton. Welcome to the show, bro.
Great to be here. Hamptonio and Vince.
Yeah,
Known these brothers for years. So yeah.
Yes. How you been though? You've been navigating yourself around the city. People used to hear first. They heard you on radio, heard you on television, and things of that nature. So your face is an icon here in Cleveland. We want to let our listeners and that may be out of town and other places, watching this, letting you know that you're an icon here in Cleveland, Ohio. And you've been doing some things, and right now you took on some other tasks of spreading the culture, of setting the stage for Black folks to feel some type of pride and energy, and something that can be long lasting, that represents African Americans in this city, in this country, and it's something that we need to do. Tell us about this new project that you're working on.
Well, it's really an old project. I look at myself as I took the baton from many people before me. Started off with Leo. He was the councilman in Leo Jackson, a councilman back in 1961, who had this idea of having a cultural garden in the midst of all these other cultural gardens in Cleveland. I don't know how many people how many viewers you have who are outside of Cleveland. We have this unique stretch in Cleveland that's about 1.5 miles where all of these different ethnicities have been celebrating their culture with gardens. Like you have Italian Americans, Irish Americans, you have Lithuanians, Poles, Hungarians, all of those people who settled in Cleveland. And starting in like 1919, I think it was 1960, they started having these gardens that were developed. Well, in 1961, this councilman, Leo Jackson, said, we need to have one that honors those who are descendants of enslaved Africans. And ever since then, we've been on this journey. So it's been about 3 years now that since I was asked to be the executive director of the African American Culture Garden, because it's been a long, winding journey with a lot of fits and starts and stops. And people who have been in Cleveland around for a long time know that this has been going on for a while. Changed locations, but now we have a design, we have an end goal, and we've raised a good deal of money to finish it. And we've also started it, but we have to raise a lot of money yet to finish it. So that's what I'm spending all of my time doing. Now, if people don't know, I worked in television for about 26 years. I was in radio for 4 years. So 30 years in broadcasting, reporting news. Then I spent like 15 years in government working with Earl Turner, who was the clerk of courts, helping people who had like warrants and getting them back in, becoming legal drivers. I just retired from that in January.
Oh,
So I could really focus on this. And that's, my mantra has been, let's finish it. If you go past the Cultural Garden out there on St. Clair and Martin Luther King, you'll see a big sign saying, let's finish it. That's my, that's kind of the rallying cry that I've adopted.
Yeah. Well, I guess for people who's been in this in the city for a long time, they're familiar, and you're right that it went through a few hands and several pushes to try to get this thing done. Some might want to know if you have the background, Mike White's involvement in this.
Yes, I'll tell you that he had maybe the earliest involvement after 1961. The councilman Leo Jackson tried to get it started. It was voted down several times in city council funding it and that kind of thing. Michael White, when he was running, was making that one of his platforms because he's from Glenville and he was in the area. He wanted to make sure that it was built. And then when he came when he was elected mayor, there was a settlement with him and a railroad company. They were found liable for $250,000. And he directed that money. He said, well, let's give that money to the African American Cultural Garden. So that kind of kicked it off then. And then you had other people, well, before even him, you had Booker Tall, who was a professor of African American. He really started the African American History Department at Tri-C. And so he was kind of the champion who geared it back up again. And then Mike White, put that $250,000 on it. And then Frank Jackson, when he came in office, he was the one who kind of assembled a number of people together, put an organization together, got some money from some foundations, and that's how we were able to build the what we've built so far at the top of the hill. When we get a chance, I'll show people the video, and they'll be able to see kind of what's there now and what we have yet to go.
Yeah, it's been a journey. Let's switch gears and talk about a little bit the significance and why this rallying call is necessary, for us to do this, and what kind of what's the benefits of us putting this together.
Yeah, and I had to really try to make sure that I could crystallize that in some words because ultimately people wonder what's in it for me. And so when you see this magnificent structure that is planned and is going to be built, it is going to fill our community with a whole lot of pride. Number one, that our garden is so magnificent on this stretch. And it's not just something to look at. It's just not a nice thing to look at. It's going to be a place where we gather on a regular basis. And when this thing is built, it's going to be sold out because to occupy it for a day, you don't have to. We can't charge any rent for it. So you'd be able to pay $50. Maybe by in a couple of years, it might go up to $55 just for a permit, and then you could have it all day for a wedding or a family reunion or a concert or whatever. You could, you would have the authority to have it for the whole day for your family or whatever. And that's where it really comes makes a lot of significance for, because if you have a daughter or a son, or a niece or a nephew that wants to get married, hey, you pay $50 to get the garden, and you get all this history, and you get all of this atmosphere, and you get to have a gala. So now you can spend your money on a tent in case it rains. So all of those, that's what it's going to do for us, other than also exhibiting to the broader community our significance, and inviting them to come, because people like to go to the cultural gardens to get their wedding pictures. They like to get graduation pictures. So because of our unique architecture, a lot of people will want to come to our garden because it'll give them a kind of cool, clean look.
You know what? See, trust me, I've been out here a few years, and trying to do things to, for the African American community. And from what I know, and basically what school is all about, it's about inspiration. It's about motivation. And motivation drives pretty much everything, and getting us motivated to do something. If people who may be watching this on Facebook or on YouTube right now, you're seeing the display of the site, and that's the finished product there, Brother Obie?
Yeah, that's how it will look when it's finished. If it's okay, we can show this video that explains what it is now and what it's going to be.
If you can do that.
Give me just a moment.
Okay, well, explain what we're seeing right now.
Okay, this is if you're an eagle. And actually, there are eagles up in the trees right now, overlooking the garden. That road that you see down to the bottom, which is over on the left-hand side, that's Martin Luther King Drive.
Okay.
And it goes all the way, up the hill. That the street on the right-hand side is Wheelock up at the top. And so that the goal that you see up on the left-hand side and that little black corridor there is already built now. And so, but we have to do is go down the hill, and that terrace that you see there is going to, that's where we're going to have all these events.
Yeah, it's the top part of the top of the hill, and it's correct me if I'm wrong. Is that representing like the door of no return or something like that?
That is the door of no return.
Okay.
Do you have that, Vincent? That video will explain a lot.
Okay.
Give me just a moment, fellas.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
And if you notice, you'll see on the on that terrace, it's right in the middle. You see that star in the corner.
Okay, yeah, I do see it now. Yes.
So that represents the North Star and the Little Dipper. So if you're familiar, with the history of that, enslaved Africa, were guided by the North Star to the north. So this represents our ancestors, how they came from the South. I think Georgia came a lot to the Cleveland area, Northeast Ohio. So our ancestors came up here for opportunity. And despite all of the challenges that they had, despite discrimination, despite the redlining, they were able to get whatever jobs they could, buy whatever land they could, and settle here as residents. And then they were able to send their kids to school, and a lot of us are those kids. And then so that's established our presence here. So the garden has all of that symbolism. Is going to have all that symbolism in it, and representing what we talk about, the past up on the top of the hill, the present down in the middle, and then the future going to inspire hope.
Yeah, and right at this particular point, it's a lot of talk in our country about history and the importance of history. Ancient Orange, is doing what he can to actually stifle, a lot of information that's being out there. He's in the Martin Luther King Museum, Smithsonian, that he's trying to take some of the exhibits out of that because he feels that it shows, actually, you would keep it plain and simple. It shows the truth of the makeup of this country, the development of this country, and quite frankly, we got people who have issues with telling the truth about this particular country and the founding of this particular country. So right now, in the climate that we're in right now, it's very important for us to establish and to fortify any things that is remnants of our history, because right at this time, all of us have a little age on us, okay? And at this particular point, you have to be thinking about the people who come after you. So we have to ask ourselves a question of, okay, what are we going to leave for our children to take the baton to go further? Is it going to be a blackout on everything? And so at this particular point, we have our children representing, celebrating other cultural events other than themselves. We kind of like in that little space at this particular time, because a lot of the enthusiasm that we once had with Kwanzaa, that we with Black History Month and things of that nature, it's not as what it used to be back in the day. So right now, what's going on in this country is ever so important for us to be reestablishing those things like that. You know what I mean? And so we can really look out for our children, so they can stand on some self-pride and moving forward. We ready, Vince?
Yeah, I think we are. Let's see here.
You'll recognize some faces on this. Well, yeah. The old school folks will recognize some faces.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah.
I'm Leon Bibb.
The African American Cultural Garden, one of the many cultural gardens on Martin Luther King Drive, celebrates the African American experience. Part of the garden is already completed on the upper level. It represents the past with the door of no return. You can walk between the black granite walls and imagine the fearful experience of those taken from Africa in tight quarters on slave ships.
This is Danita Harris from News 5. What has not been built yet is a channel for water that cascades down the hill, representing the Middle Passage on the Atlantic Ocean. It leads to a black granite terrace that will host events. It is etched with the Little Dipper and the North Star, which guided thousands of enslaved people to freedom in the North.
I'm Wayne Dawson. The water will continue to flow down the hillside in reference to the Ohio River and the Great Lakes that facilitated the journey to a better life. It also marks the continued struggle of Black people to the present. The garden will end at Martin Luther King Drive. The entire structure will symbolize the spirit and tremendous resilience of our parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents who came from the South to a better life in the North.
This is Harry Boomer. The future platform beside the MLK Boulevard's walking trail will have benches and a water feature that gives homage to our past and hope to our future generations that anything is possible regardless of the challenges.
Hi, I'm Ramona Robinson, Emmy Award-winning anchor, author, and speaker. The garden will be more than just a beautiful structure to view. It will be our place to go to celebrate life and to enjoy each other. The terrace will seat 300, enough to host weddings, family reunions, concerts, and more.
This is Obie Shelton. Let's finish it.
The African American Cultural Garden has a portion already built at the top of the hill. With your help, it will cover the entire hill as a magnificent tribute to those who came before us, as well as a symbol of pride and hope for future generations. We need your donations of money, time, and energy to make it happen. Everybody can contribute something. We can do it. Click the support button to get involved. Let's finish it.
Wow. I'm speaking on and feeling a little sorry for those who may be listening to us on terrestrial radio, not and wasn't able to see that, but that's a marvelous looking piece right there. That's really going to be something when you get that together, and it's actually something proud for us to really be proud of, as a people and as a race of people. That's a wonderful thing, and to be able to have that history there, and to be able to have events there, let me say this. Let me say this. There isn't a lot of things, as far as I'm concerned, for Black folks in the city and country to be proud of, that we have done. It's not a whole lot of things, because the way the media puts us out there, we're seeing some of our young brothers and sisters doing crazy stuff out there, and they're blowing it up, and that's all they see. Like nothing is good coming out of the hood as well, so we rarely get a chance to see excellence, being displayed from an African American population. This is the very reason why I took my parade downtown. We tend to stay relegated to our backyard parks, by the African American community being, as far as in Cleveland itself, being the majority population, and we tend to still be in our backyards doing our events, not giving the opportunity for other ethnic groups to partake in some of our culture, that we display, if we always in our backyard parks. You know what I mean? So that was one of the reasons why I took it downtown, to be on, as they say in the street, on Front Street, and having the city, look out for us as well as they do the other cultures, in our city. So, people was telling me, Lynn, take it to Luke Easter, take it to this, take it to that. I said, no, I want to go downtown, front and center, like any other ethnic group, and use the city's resources just like everybody else does. You know what I mean? Because, quite frankly, our community share our money with everybody, every other culture that's in this city. We partake in the Irish, we partake in the Puerto Rican festival, we partake in the Asian festival. But guess what? None of them is going to come down to Luke Easter Park and spend $1 with our vendors down there. None of them. So this was the challenge, and this is what I always try to say to people. So again, it's all about pride and motivation, and this project right here would definitely, do something for the morale of our people, and then giving us something to be proud of. And you got all this whole stretch of all these different cultures on Martin Luther King Boulevard. For us to stand out like that, I think that would represent us real swell.
Yeah, and what I have said is that it's a project that no matter what your religion, no matter where your politics, we have people who consider themselves progressives, those who consider themselves conservatives, and people all on the spectrum. No matter what your politics are, if you identify as an African American, that is, that you recognize that somebody in your ancestry came here in chains, and somebody in your ancestry was liberated from those chains one way or another. Many times it was by their own doing, either by escaping or by buying their own freedom. Some of them most of us were achieved a level of freedom as a result of the Civil War, the 13th Amendment, the Emancipation Proclamation, and then somebody from your family came to Northeast Ohio from the South to seek opportunity. And so that is all of us, and that's what unites us. So no matter what, if you are a Mason or if you are a Greek, no matter where, if you have a little bit of money, if you have a lot of money, we are bound together by that history. And so that's why, this is a project that we can all get together, and those who have a lot can contribute a lot. Those who have a little can contribute a little. I will tell you that we have a whole lot of people, maybe about 700 at this point, who have contributed a little. I'm talking about $20, $25, $10. And that shows me that there is this recognition at the grassroots level that this is important. And if it grows, those who are at the higher levels in terms of resources will say, oh, okay, y'all, this is finally coming together. I did some math, and according to the 2020 census, at that time, there were about 300,000, close to 300,000 adults who self-identified as African American in Cuyahoga County, just in Cuyahoga County, 300,000. So if the math says if every one of those 300,000 were to contribute $10, just 10, right? We could break ground tomorrow. But then, of that 300,000, there are some who are on fixed incomes, and it's really tough. And $10 for some people, would be a hardship. But if just half of them, were to contribute 20, we could still break ground tomorrow. And then if you break it down, if 10%, just 30,000 were to contribute $100, we could break ground tomorrow. And do I think that there's 30,000 African Americans who could contribute $100 either immediately, one time, or $10 a month for a year? Absolutely. So that's what encourages me, that this, if we are inspired, we will support it. And so it's a matter of starting, of getting that movement, and it's already there. Just getting it snowballing so that people know what the finish line is. And that's why, I'm going to churches and really emphasizing that video, because would you agree, Lynn and Vince, once you saw it, it kind of changes your perspective, right?
Absolutely. You'll mute Vince. Yeah, but absolutely. Yeah, that's what I was saying. That's beautiful. Yeah, it's beautiful, and I see the vision, of having those functions and stuff out there like that. That's gonna be really nice, nice.
Yeah. So I have, I'm trying to spread that as much as I can, and keep the mantra of let's finish it, meaning who's let's? It's us, right? Mm-hmm. Finish, meaning that it was already started. We started it long ago, but we got to finish it. And finish what? Finish this. It's this thing. And to your point of, what I like about the design, and it was designed by Dan Bickerstaff, who's a local African-American
architect. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he has his, he's right there on Lee Road and Van Aken. That's where his office is. Mm-hmm. And he does projects all around the country, but this is the one that he has in his window, because he designed this back in 2010, around then. And so this is the one that really matters to him. In fact, I don't think he said this publicly, that he would like to have his funeral, his homegoing service, on the garden.
Wow.
As when it's completed. So if nothing else motivates me, we don't expect that anytime soon, but we would like to have it. And when he told me that, I go, that's an idea.
I just want to say one thing, and giving us the whole African proverb, what it says: when a spider web unites, it can tie up a lion or bring down a lion. So those little tools and fuse that you just was talking about, we can slay this thing here. Brother Vince.
Yeah, I'm thinking of a few different things in this moment. The first thing that came to my mind is our beloved country of Ghana, having visited there a few times. And you can drive past the location and you can see a building that's under construction, but it hasn't been completed.
Mm-hmm. I saw that too.
Sometimes it takes a while for folks to get the resources together to finish that particular project. It's an ongoing project. It takes time. So this kind of reminds me of that. But when we talk about grassroots, I'm just thinking about the depth of roots. So we have some folks who are at the shorter end of the root, closest to the ground, those that have the least amount of resources. And then we have groups that have roots that run deep, that are connected to greater resources. So I'm thinking about this whole idea of the talented 10th. And I think the talented 10th is where our resources lie, because they're the ones who are bringing home the big paychecks. You mentioned Greek organizations, and I'm thinking that we have the Divine Nine, and we have a vast amount of resources there. And I think this is something that could be and should be important to all of them, because they would be in a position to utilize that resource over there on Martin Luther King Boulevard. So a couple of things. One, our boule, I'll just say that. The boule, the boule does provide a benefit to us as people who live in this country. So that's one. But number two, I'm also thinking in terms of what government support we get. You mentioned Leo Jackson. You mentioned some other folks who were in politics, who were able to greenlight things so that they could happen. I know that the city of Cleveland has a budget of $21 billion a year. I also know that a very small portion of that, as a matter of fact, the non-existent portion of that goes to art and culture. And I see this as a cultural entity. So I'm just wondering if there's any kind of way that we can make some headway with our legislative leaders and our administrative leaders to have them to lend some vital support for this project, because it's not beyond the realm of possibility to complete with civic engagement and civic support. So I'm just wondering why this has been on the table for such a long time and why it's such a struggle for us to get it done. You know, when you talk about churches, it's the same thing. We got a lot of folks who are in churches, and I actually had this idea the last time we had this conversation, Obie. If we just took up an offering in all the churches in Cleveland on any given Sunday, let's just designate a Sunday and let's do an offering for the African American Cultural Gardens. We could do that maybe once or twice a year, make these donations and get this done. You know, we always have a tendency, and I think Brother Antonio alluded to this earlier in our conversation, we always have a tendency to have to depend on others. And I think you mentioned it too, Obie. But this is for us. Let it be for us, by us. Let us step up, you know, and contribute. It's either $10 or $100. We got donors in the city that could give $10,000 and not lose a second or minute of sleep. You know, this is something that should not be impossible for us as a Black community in the city of Cleveland. And I'll step off the soapbox and give the baton back to you, Brother Antonio.
You know, but see, and you made a perfect point. All we have to do, see, I mean, this is the reason and the purpose that I'm even doing this show, because we need to display some type of cultural unity. Because personally, I mean, this is how I feel. You know, others may not feel but this way, but I feel because of the talent, because of our resources, and because of our ill thinking, you know, especially we're the laughing stock. Now that's me saying it, y'all. You know, we're the laughing stock to me of the city, of this country, because we got so much talent. You know, we got the resources to do it. Where we at right now with our dollars? What, how many trillion, 2 trillion or whatever dollars that we spend in this country and give back to somebody else? You know, we let any and everybody in our community to take our resources out. You know, Vince, we was talking about that last week. We was talking about that supermarket over there on 114th and Buckeye. That should have been owned by African American owner. It should have been. You know, that's why I say laughing stock. That is absolutely absurd and crazy for us to continue to operate like that. You know, and people take advantage of us. People, they're taking the resources out and taking them over to their own community, treating you halfway like foreigners here. You know what I mean? You don't get no respect out there. They just want your money. You know, you come in the stores, they're looking at you crazy and cross-eyed and everything, and talk to you any kind of way. How long are we going to allow that to happen? You know what I mean? And that's why I say laughing stock. So people, you just think about it. You got foreigners. What is the first thing they say? Hey, I should come up here and set up a business. You guys been here forever, and I'm outdoing you guys. You know, we know there's some backdrop to that. We understand that. You know, they don't know that, but that's all they're seeing is that way. Well, this is the land of opportunity. I come in here with a little resources, and I own a business, a hotel. I own a couple gas stations, and what are y'all doing? So for us not to own a supermarket in the whole city, come on, I'm just so tired of being the laughing stock of everything, or being on the bottom of the totem pole of everything. So that's why it's as important. That's why it's necessary for us to rally behind something and produce something that we did ourselves and not begging, others, to a certain degree. Now, hey, like Vince said, if they got allotted funds that's going to other people to do something, yes, for sure, let's capitalize on that for sure. But we should to definitely put the majority of the skin in the game of this particular project, and let's step up Cleveland, let's step up Greater Cleveland, and Obie, you tell us what we need to do in order to make that happen.
Yeah, and I would say that, not to cut you off, Obie, but I would say that you clearly illustrated the importance of sharing the vision, because people don't connect with the largeness of this project without having seen what we saw in that video and the connection that it has to the lives of people. Weddings are cultural events, and we are a cultural people. That concert is a cultural event. We're a cultural people, and I'm mentioning this just to drive this point home. And again, I'll hand the baton to Obie. I went to Philadelphia 3 weeks ago to observe a mural project that they have in progress right now. In Philadelphia, there are 4,000 murals in that city, and the reason that this program even exists is because back in the 90s, Mayor Wilson W. Good, or W. Wilson Good, decided that he was tired of graffiti. So they started spending Philadelphia money on murals. The result of that is that in 2025, the city of Philadelphia has a $19.15 million appropriation within its budget for art and culture. Art and culture, C-U-L-T-U-R-E. They recognize the importance of culture, and they have used art as a means of lifting the people and culture as a means of lifting the people. The city of Cleveland has zero money in its budget for art and culture. So the public art that we see, from my understanding, is a result of appropriations that city council members make towards those kinds of projects. They have some discretionary funding. They get funding from different sources, and they're able to do that. This amounts to 0.3%, 0.3% of Philadelphia's annual budget. Cleveland has zero money in its budget that I'm aware of. Now, there is a 1.5% community benefit agreement that goes towards new construction projects. But in terms of a line item budget on the city of Cleveland's budget, there's no money there. And this is something that needs to change. The other thing that's significant about this is something that I spoke about in our pre-show, and that's the fact that the city of Philadelphia appropriates $800,000 a year to its African American Museum. $800,000 a year. There's zero money in the budget for the African American Museum here in Cleveland, Ohio. So all of this is being said to point out the fact that we can designate a small percentage of our budget towards art and culture. I did the math yesterday. $21 billion budget. If just 1% of the budget was spent on art and culture, you'd have $21 million, and you'd have 1.8 or $2.2 million that you could appropriate to the African American cultural gardens, and the problem is solved, or the issue is resolved. That's just a suggestion, but I just wanted to get that out there, Obie. Please continue to share.
Yeah, well, we have talked. We certainly talked. We have some champions in council. Over the years, the city of Cleveland has allocated, like I told you, Mike White, allocated $250,000 under the Jackson administration. He had put together, it was about close to $500,000 to get the existing part done. And then now there's maybe $200,000 in the city of Cleveland from the Jackson administration that is part of the 1.8. And I know I'm throwing out a lot of numbers to our viewers. I apologize, but I'm familiar with them because we deal with them every day. There's close to $2 million, $1.8 million that we've already raised, and part of that is like $200,000 from the city of Cleveland from the Jackson administration. We have the mayor, Bibb has said that he is committed to finding a path forward so that we can, complete this. What's that going to look like? We have some West Side councilmen, Casey from the way far west, Southwest side, challenged the mayor in budget hearings and said, we've got to get that African American cultural garden finished. And mayor, we can find, some money. So the mayor has agreed, but it's a matter of how are you going to do that when you're giving, when you got, you got to fund salary bump ups, big salary bump ups for the police department, and all of those things. But what I'm saying is, while all that's going on, and in addition to, the county gave us $300,000 in ARPA money, 2023. And we just got another $10,000 from the county in ARPA money. So that's part of the money that we've already gotten. But while all that's going on, what I tell people is, when you look for those, when they say, why don't they finish our garden? I say, well, who are they? The people who have donated to us so far, we have people, like I said, who give $10 a month. They realize that their budgets are not going to be impacted. Their life is not going to be stressed by sending $10 a month for the African American Cultural Garden. Now, if we get 25,000 people across Cuyahoga County, you're talking Beechwood and South Euclid and Shaker and Cleveland Heights and Walton Hills and all of these other places where we have people of our community of means, and you get all of them given. It doesn't matter what the government does, right? We are able to build it, and if the government kicks in late, or if a corporation kicks in because they go, hey, they're building that African American garden, and you know what? If we were to finish it off with 500,000, that would give us great publicity in the Black community because we want their dollars. Okay, I would expect that to happen, but they would have to see that we're getting close to the end, and then they would want to close the gap. But for me, the essence of it is we can do it if we just, if we see the vision and we buy into the vision, and we collectively say we're going to lead the way. And if government wants to help us, great. If they don't, we still gonna get it done.
Yeah, I truly feel that that's a necessary thing for us to do it, and also give some type of respect. See, I'm going right back to this. See, I'm a play towards our morals and our respect, of getting respect, because it's so important. It's so important. And then, like I mentioned earlier, even leaving something to the kids. What have you done? Because back in the 60s, we were all young, you know what I mean? And while this project was taking place, you know what I mean? So now, are we going to leave it in the same place for our kids to say, yeah, they've been working on this thing for 70, 80 years. We're going to find it. Come on, people, especially in the light of the climate of what's going on right now. It's ever so important for us to do something and make a mark on our own. And just take the things, take right now. With what you just said, Brother Obie, I don't know if you're familiar with the things that's going on in Africa, Burkina Faso at this particular time. Are you, with Abraham Traore? Okay, he's the president of Burkina Faso right now, and actually by his actions and standing up and having the courage to take over the country and do what he needed to do, as far as kicking out the French and taking over the gold mines and putting it and then reinvesting it back into the country. That took courage. But you know what that single act done? It's inspiring the whole continent of Africa. So it kind of speaks to what you say. If we do something to step up our game and show other folks that we are inspired to do this, it can attract and it can actually start a groundswell that across the city, across the Cuyahoga County. You might even have donors that's outside the city or outside the state that want to be a part of what we're doing. You know what I'm saying? So that's the same thing that I see here. It's taking its first step. Was not the first step, but taking another step, okay, and showing the community and the greater community that we're going to get this thing done and we're motivated to do it. God knows what can happen at that particular point.
I know that part of the challenge is to make people feel invested. It's one thing to look at that video and you say, okay, that's great. But to really connect people to that property, to that land, is, I realize, a challenge, because the only reason you care about property is if you have memories there. People who go to a college, they have memories there, and that's why they contribute to their alumni association and participate in stuff. So I can tell you that we're planning some events this year. One is our traditional Juneteenth celebration. I know there are a lot of them around the city, but we're having ours from 10:30 until 3 at the garden. It's a matter of, and it's a thing of getting people onto the garden. But then I'm pulling together another event in July, where I call it Golf for the Garden, where we're going to invite people to join teams of who people who think they've got some skills. And
You hear that, Vince, now?
yeah. And so you could go and show your skills off at the garden, right? You show up there, and if you can picture this, you're hitting not away from the street, up the hill, not driving way up, you're not doing regular long drive, 17 yards, right? And we have a green up there. And whoever, if you can hit a hole in one, all right, that gives you good, you have a good chance of winning. And there'd be some cash prizes and for teams, and whoever comes closest, then they would be the winners. What I said, this is a good opportunity for Black businesses to invest in this, because you would, the idea is to have a backstop, like which would be a billboard for that business, so that you have, if you can picture the green, that's maybe 8 feet wide, and then there's a sign that has a business logo on it, so that you have for the entire morning and to the afternoon, you have people of means aiming a golf ball at that sign. We have one supporter, and that is Calhoun Funeral Home. Right now, they are the one sponsor for it. So for 4 hours, 5 hours, you'd have people aiming at Calhoun Funeral Homes. Now, I've been talking to some other businesses, have not been able to get firm commitments from them, but I think this is a creative way, number one, of promoting our within the community, our inter-community businesses, so that we support them, and and they're supporting us, and it's giving people a real fun experience on the garden. So when the day's over, brothers are trash talking, man, you told me, man, I smoked you on that hole or whatever, and so then you give people a memory. And now you've connected them to the land a little bit better. So these kinds of things, and I think it could spill into some other things that we're going to do later on in the year. But again, when this is all over, I would hope that we've done more than just build a structure, that we've done a little bit more of building our community, and we say, wow, we pulled together and got that done. We can do something else together.
There you go.
That's I might be a dreamer, but I'm not the only one.
Obie, the convention for the National Association of Black Journalists is going to take place here in Cleveland in August.
Right.
And one of the stops that they're going to make when they tour Cleveland is the African American Cultural Gardens. There's a marker over there, a historic marker that commemorates the significance of that place. And I was just sitting here thinking what a fantastic memory it would have been for them to have visited Cleveland from all over the country and seen the vision that you showed us in that video that we ran earlier in this program. That would be absolutely magnificent. I did a little numbers crunching while we were having conversation, and I looked up the cost of the Sherwin-Williams building downtown. I think the project was somewhere between $300 million and $600 million. And I alluded to that 1.5% community benefit agreement, the CBA. Do you know how much that equals?
I'm not real good at math, but
I'm getting ready to tell you. 1.5% of 300 million is $4.5 million.
Yeah.
One project.
Yep.
One. And the thing about that money is if they don't use it, it's not used at all.
Mhm.
They could use that $4.5 million to install art in the magnificent Sherwin-Williams building downtown, or it could go into a pot of money. And believe me, there are folks who know about this. I had a conversation with the head of the Cleveland Foundation, and I shared that idea with her, and she was geeked about it because she knows. So all I'm saying is the money is there. We just have to find it,
Right.
and it could come from civic places or it could come from the community. But either way, definitely something that needs to be done.
It's a matter of inspiring people. I think I have committed to myself that I'm not going to scold people. I'm going to inspire them, and I think that over time it can work. I've seen it. I've seen it work. After I go, and I've been to a number of churches, and some churches have already. You mentioned that earlier, Vince. They've contributed, and there have been some others that have pledged to contribute. And like with any fundraiser, you have to move from the pledge to the actual action, and that takes some doing. That takes some persistence. And so yeah, that's why I retired, so that I can make those phone calls, make those visits, and keep pressing that this is important. And and the thing is, we can do it. It's not hard. I mean, it's not hard as far as the numbers are concerned. It's just a matter of what's hard for me is to get people to say, okay, punch the button. AAACG.org, especially as someone is listening on the radio. If you go to AAACG.org, you're going to see that video that just came up, because we fixed it so that it would, as soon as you go on the site, you're going to see Leon Bibb pop right up. And you'll see that video and another one where I'm preaching about the 300,000 and the $10. I wondered if I could start a movement where people go like this, right? Let's do 10, let's do 10. I don't know if it'll catch on or not, but AAACG.org. Since we're in this kind of a format, people ask me, why is it why are there 3 A's? And because African American Cultural Garden, when people look that up on the internet, they get taken to other places. Well, before I came on board, it's the Association of African American Cultural Gardens. So AAACG, right? So what I've tried to do is make it rhythmic. And I know, Vince is as a poet, he understands rhythm, and Antonio's a drummer. So I always say AAACG.org. AAACG.org. I'm getting ready to put a video out where people are chanting that, so that it'll drive people to that website and they'll see the stuff that we have up there. AAACG.org.
Yeah. Hey, I guess the question would be too that one might have is the team, the legwork, your help, what. How is it anything that people can do or volunteer to, I mean, we're putting it out there now. If you're a part of organizations that, like you say, those fraternities, sororities, or whatever other group that you might be in, take the opportunity and motivate them to do a little function, do one little function to say, okay, we're going to do this, any of those little church functions, and we're going to donate all these proceeds to the African Garden. That's all you have to do. Just that simple.
Absolutely. And when I go to church, whenever I go places, I hand out these flyers and I tell them, now, some of you can donate, right? Right now, some of you can be a member, which is, our memberships help our operations. The donations go directly to the construction fund. The memberships, they fund like our literature, right? So if we have more members, we can make more literature and spread the word. I said, but bottom line, for you to take this and pass it on to your family, if you're inspired today, pass it on to your family who's passing it on. It's beginning to have effects. I had a woman call me and tell me that she organized 6 grade school kids. These are kids from third grade to sixth grade, just 6 of them. And they made the African American Cultural Garden their project for Black History. So back in February, they got together one night, had pizza, and they called their friends and relatives. The kids did. And they raised, they had a goal of $600 because they said each kid should be able to bring in $600. Well, after an hour, they had surpassed 600. They were like up to 800, and then it went to 1,000, then it was 1,500, and then it was 2,000. In one night, these kids, elementary school kids raised $2,400. So that tells me that it is happening, that these little crumbs that we're passing out now it's starting to build, and it's getting the excitement. The fact that I'm here today, my good friend Thomas
McMillan.
I'm gonna give him a shout out. I'm talking to him. We've been talking about the golf thing. He's been helping me with that. He said, well, let me hit up, my fellow officer, Hamptonio. And so, he talked to you. He's been making other connections. And then, so now other people are buying in. So that's going to work. But to your point, Lynn, is that, you can sign up on our website, AAACG.org, to be a volunteer. And I'm going to send you emails about stuff that's coming up. Some people can drive cars. We've had people, deliver stuff. We have some projects coming up on the Hill where we're going to have to do some yard work. And we've been doing that the past few weeks. But another opportunities coming up next week and the week after that in terms of planting some flowers. So, it's a matter of getting people on the garden, getting their hands on it. Now you're a little attached to it. But yeah, and so you can either donate, you can either be a member, or you can volunteer. So everybody can do something. We have some people who haven't given us donations, but boy, they've given us a lot of in-kind donations and time and effort and that kind of thing. So that's how it's going to work.
Okay, I want to propose this. Let's go into overtime. Let's show the video again.
Okay.
And show folks the vision. We'll do that on the other side of noon as we close the terrestrial portion of our program. And I'll just take this opportunity to remind folks about, again, what's happening at Larchmere Arts on tomorrow. We are going to have artist Alcy Clay. She's going to do a demonstration of her artwork. And then on next Saturday, we are bringing in Elijah Gilmore to be our featured musician in an open mic poetry session. I'll be accompanying him. There will probably be some other musicians there, and we're going to have an evening of the spoken word. Brother Hamptonio, we have just a few more moments in the radio broadcast. If you wanted to share that information about what's coming up in June.
Yes, the Juneteenth ball. Again, that's the last Sunday in June, is at the Mediterranean. You can give me a holler, 216-323-6155, 216-323-6155. Let's get it together. That's going to be the culminating event for the month of June. So after you do your Juneteenth and what have you, let's celebrate after we put in the work.
All right. With that being said, we'd like to give a big, huge shout out to our brother Tone Harley. He is the third man in the broadcast. He's over there in the radio studio making sure that this signal gets out to everyone. We appreciate him for doing that. And we appreciate you for listening and seeing us on YouTube and Facebook. As always, know yourself, love yourself, be yourself, and make today your absolute best day. Peace, everyone.
Peace, peace, peace.
Peace.
All right, it's 12 o'clock noon right here on Vince Robinson's YouTube channel, Lynn Hampton's YouTube channel, The Journey with Hamptonio. And, let's just go ahead and put it out there, y'all watching on YouTube. Go ahead and like and subscribe. It doesn't cost anything. It's absolutely free. And you can get notifications about the programs that we put up. We have a really unique operation here, folks, because there aren't very many radio shows on 107.9, 93 FM that you can get this kind of information. That's the value of 360 Info Network to the city of Cleveland and the rest of the country. We have people who are watching us all over the world. Just a few weeks ago, we had a brother coming to us all the way from Takoradi, Ghana. So we have an international audience. There's great value in this program, and we bring you folks that you're not hearing on other channels. Last night, Brother Lynn, I was watching a video of Tony Browder at 1 o'clock in the morning. And this was a rebroadcast of something that he did, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago. It was VHS video. And what was so ironic is that the situation that he was describing is exactly the situation that we're dealing with right now. And he was talking about things that were going to be coming down the road in this hostile environment that we're operating in. So there's nothing new to it, but the fact that we had Tony Browder on our show and we've had over 6,000 views of that video is extremely meaningful, and it speaks to the value of the content that we're bringing. So this is a good place to be, and we definitely encourage you to support us on these different platforms. What you do assists us in getting this word out to more people. When you comment, when you subscribe, when you share, other folks know about this broadcast, and again, we can get the work out, especially when it comes to vital issues like this one. I'm sure that Brother Antonio has it in his heart that he wants to do everything he can to support bringing this into fruition. And I feel the same. I see the value in that, having that cultural institution right here in our backyard and in such a historic and meaningful place to the residents of Cleveland and to those who visit it from other places. The website is AAACG.org. You can go to that website and you can watch a couple of different videos, and you can get the full vision of what this project is going to look like when it's done. And Brother Obie, we gonna finish it by hook or by crook. We gonna finish it somehow, some way. You mentioned that it started back in 2010. The architect Daniel Bickerstaff created this vision for it, and it's partly completed. In a few moments, I'm going to initiate the video so people can see what it's going to look like, and I'll do the best I can to make it full screen so you can get the full impact. But if you could, for those who weren't able to join us on the radio broadcast, talk about this project and its importance to the city of Cleveland.
Yes. If you look at it for the last now 64 years that it has been in the works, it's had a number of twists and turns. But now the advantage is that when I came on board about 3 years ago, there was a clear design which had been approved, gone through all the approval processes. That was not easy. And so we had a target that we could hit. And so now the goal for me is to get people excited about the target to the extent that they are going to do something about it, to where we can get buy-in, where people can go into their pockets and actually say, all right, all I got is $10. I go, cool, $10. And I have lawn signs for people who have, for those who want them. If you make a contribution, I say, we give you a lawn sign, and it says, let's finish it. And you see the image of, and did my part. And so these are on maybe 50 lawns throughout greater Cleveland. And then we have T-shirts, we have hoodies that say, let's finish it. And so, we'll be getting out more of those throughout the greater part of the year. But this is, again, when you see what it's going to be, it's going to instill a tremendous sense of pride in our community when we recognize our significance and impact to Northeast Ohio and the nation. And then it's going to also share that kind of pride and help the other communities that are not, in our community. They're going to say, oh yeah, those folks, the Black community is significant. There was a white councilman, and his name was Kerry McCormick, and in a committee meeting, budget hearing, he said there is not any one ethnic group that is more significant in Northeast Ohio, in the city of Cleveland, than the African American. He said it is the most important, most significant ethnic community. So, for that to be recognized at that level, this is only going to accentuate that, and I think drive us to even greater greater accomplishments, because we have a lot of our folks. I don't know if you have friends whose kids are going down south, they're going to Atlanta or to Texas or something like that. There's a lot of work to do in Northeast Ohio because we have water, but that's another discussion.
Yeah, it's interesting. We can't express it enough on the importance of representing your culture, of instilling pride. You can't say it enough in any group. I mean, what can we say? Look what's going on in the country right now. I was just reading an article last night that some of our Southern MAGA people, whatever, it's trying to restore, and they redoing a lot of the monuments, the Confederate monuments and back, and some of the actual forts and stuff like that. They rename them. That's important to them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They feel that part of history is important to them. So it must offer something to them in order for them to go to these great lengths of wanting to restore those things or wanting to rename those monuments and things like that. I mean, to each his own. That's the thing. That's why this project is so important to us, because it has to be doing something in order for them to go through those great lengths to want to restore them. So that's why it's ever so important for us to make this mark and to show folks that look at what we've done. We put this together and we made this happen. One quick question, and I know this may change the whole dynamic on the construction, but when you say have an investor interest, you know how some people have different things like, blocks with their names on, they can buy blocks and stuff. It's not a situation set up like that at all.
We can't, I think if we had that flexibility, we would be able to raise money a lot faster. The Federation of the Gardens that oversees all of the gardens decided years ago that they were not going to do that, because I think in some of the gardens, what happens is the people with the money come up with the big bucks, and then they get their plaques up, right? And what they said is we don't want these gardens to be a tribute to wealth. We want them to be a tribute to culture. So yeah, it would be great if if all of our stones, if we had all those bricks of those stones with individuals' names on it, like they do over. I mean, Tony Sias has done a good job over at Karamu with that. But the Federation doesn't allow that because they want it to be all about culture. And what I like about the design of ours is that it is abstracted, so you can interpret your family's history. Anybody with African American can interpret their family's history and pass it on to anybody using the garden as the vehicle for that, right? Because everybody, like I said, has some kind of ancestor that came here in chains. Everybody has somebody who came here, for opportunity, and now they look forward. So as you're walking and taking your kids or your nieces or whatever along there, you can talk about the door of no return. If we have time, there's a pretty good video that we can show about that. And then you can talk about Grandpa. He came to Cleveland from Georgia, and then so again, it's abstracted in a way so that everybody can tell their own story.
Let's show the first video.
Yes.
That's not it.
Yeah, the one before that. Just back it up there. Yeah.
It was supposed to replay.
There we go.
I'm Leon Bibb. The African American Cultural Garden, one of the many cultural gardens on Martin Luther King Drive, celebrates the African American experience. Part of the garden is already completed on the upper level. It represents the past with the door of no return. You can walk between the black granite walls and Imagine the fearful experience of those taken from Africa in tight quarters on slave ships.
This is Danita Harris from News 5. What has not been built yet is a channel for water that cascades down the hill, representing the Middle Passage on the Atlantic Ocean. It leads to a black granite terrace that will host events. It is etched with the Little Dipper and the North Star, which guided thousands of enslaved people to freedom in the North.
I'm Wayne Dawson. The water will continue to flow down the hillside in reference to the Ohio River and the Great Lakes that facilitated the journey to a better life. It also marks the continued struggle of Black people to the present. The garden will end at Martin Luther King Drive. The entire structure will symbolize the spirit and tremendous resilience of our parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents who came from the South to a better life in the North.
This is Harry Boomer. The future platform beside the MLK Boulevard's walking trail will have benches and a water feature that gives homage to our past and hope to our future generations that anything is possible regardless of the challenges.
Hi, I'm Ramona Robinson, Emmy Award-winning anchor, author, and speaker. The garden will be more than just a beautiful structure to view. It will be our place to go to celebrate life and to enjoy each other. The terrace will seat 300, enough to host weddings, family reunions, concerts, and more.
This is Obie Shelton. Let's finish it.
The African American Cultural Garden has a portion already built at the top of the hill. With your help, it will cover the entire hill as a magnificent tribute to those who came before us, as well as a symbol of pride and hope for future generations. We need your donations of money, time, and energy to make it happen. Everybody can contribute something. We can do it. Click the support button to get involved. Let's finish it.
So that's our main video. Do you, Vince? How much time would you need to show the second one?
Vince, you might be on mute.
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, it's a beautiful, beautiful setup. You know, and I can see our community getting a lot of mileage out of that. You know, and that, just like you said, I can see it being booked up all the time.
Yeah, it'd be hard to get a weekend on it because you know everything's going on. It looks like he might be queuing the other one up. Now, just to kind of set this other video up, on the the door of no return. Now, when I came on the board, I said, okay, it's great what those things represent. It's just that, just like when you're in the art museum, it's one thing to look at a painting. It's another thing when you read the inscription on the side and you understand the history behind that painting or the symbolism. Now you have a greater appreciation for it. People were coming to our garden and they were kind of looking at this, you know, these slabs and the arch, and they go, but there was nothing that explained what it meant and transferred the history of it. There's a remarkable history that is in there. And so what I did was I put an explainer, like a little explainer of what the door of no return means, because we found out when we had events like One World Day. If some people don't know One World Days, that's like when we people, thousands of people, 50,000 people come to the gardens and they get to sample all the different gardens. And we found that there were a lot of Black people, a lot of white people. And we said, that represents the door of no return. They said, what's the door of no return? They had no idea what that means. And so I said, well, we need to explain what that means. And the fact that you can go up there and walk through it and you can kind of experience an interactive experience where, and when you understand the history of that, now you have a different appreciation for what people went through. And I think Vince has that video cleared up. So you would go up there and you would see that described, and you would click on the QR code and you would see this video.
On the grounds?
Yes,
has
on
that
the grounds.
feature?
Now, yeah, if you go there today, you're not going to see it because what happened was I had a stand that kept getting blown over by the wind, so I had to order a bigger stand, and it should be up, I don't know, in a couple of days. But you'll be able to go up there, see the explanation, and click on and click on the QR code, and then see this video.
Good, good. Mhm.
This upper part of the garden monument represents the door of no return, in remembrance of the portal that millions of Africans went through as they left everything behind in chains to enter a life of enslavement. This is a real door of no return at the Cape Coast Slave Castle in Ghana. It was made intentionally narrow to only allow one person through at a time. A ship was waiting on the other side where the captured people would be crammed as tightly as possible. A percentage of them were expected to die on the journey, so ships were overloaded. The preferred age was 16 to 30. Here, you can walk through the narrow space of the monument and imagine leaving your home, family, and customs behind permanently. Notice the blue line of tiles in the middle of the pathway. Architect Dan Bickerstaff explains its meaning.
When I did my research, there was part of the dungeon experience where there was a crevice in the middle of the dungeon. And I always wondered, what did that entail? And what was that experience? And you just think about, it was an exposed latrine. So just imagine you have hundreds of people confined to this small space. And I hate to be crude, but that's the reality of our forefathers' experience. So you can see the crevice is still there. We're talking hundreds of years. And what I chose to do was that was so powerful once I realized what that was, that I wanted to express it, but express it beautifully. So what I decided to do was create a glass crevice.
So that's the experience you have up at the top. Now, see, now it's more real to you, right? And we can have QR codes like that around the whole garden that give you a little bit of information and connect you to video so that you really feel, and that history is passed on. I mean, when he told me about that crevice, man, that kind of blew me away. And there's the reasons why he used smooth stones and textured stones on the arch, and I forget why, but I'm going to do another video with him about that. All of it has this really significant meaning. So again, it's an opportunity to get people in that space and educate them while they're engaging and having a wedding or family reunion, whatever.
I just want to throw this in there again, just reflecting on what was just shared. I've been to the Cape Coast Slave Dungeon, and I believe Hamtonio has been there as well.
A couple months ago.
Yeah, and I don't know that I ever saw that door of no return. The door of return that I'm familiar with was the larger one that opened up to the bay that's right there adjacent to the dungeon. But what really strikes me about this is the symbolism. So going through the door of no return and the traumatic aspect of that, but then the counter narrative is coming through the door of return, which is what those of us who went back did. So it was a moment of pride to be able to walk through that door from the other direction. So I'm thinking about the impact of starting at the bottom of the hill and walking up the hill and walking through that opening in the other way. Number one. Number two, I'm thinking about that trough that was the latrine that Mr. Bickerstaff talked about, and looking at the reverse of that, which is the water flowing down the hill, and it's clean water. So it's the exact opposite of the trauma that we experienced and the significance of that moving water because of what water represents to us. So there's a whole bunch of symbolism wrapped up into this. I don't know if you ever thought about that, Obie, but that's what's coming to me in this moment. And that's why this installation is so important. It's not just the fact that it's there, but it's what it represents to us as a people. And just reflecting on the video that I watched with Brother Browder last night, he was talking about a museum that they've installed in Washington, D.C. that pays tribute and homage to Dr. John Henry Clark, who was under the tutelage of Arturo Schomburg. And it was Schomburg that instilled in him this importance of visiting European history and African history. And one of the standout ideas about this museum is that it's not just about the 400 years that we've been here in America as descendants of people who were captured and brought here. It's about the history before that. And I think that's why this is important for us, because we've been on this planet. We were the first people. And it's important for us to understand the significance of our connection to that history. So in order for us to understand who we are moving forward, Sankofa, Brother Antonio, we have to understand where we came from. And where we came from was not a place of trauma. Where we came from was a place of being on the leading edge of creation on this planet. What would America be without the things that African Americans have contributed to this country? What would it be? It wouldn't be the world leader that it's been for the past 200 and some odd years. It would not be that. So we are a great and mighty people, and we need to understand who we are. So 4 million, that should be a small thing for us. It shouldn't be this insurmountable obstacle that we've been dealing with. Did you say 64 years, Brother Obie?
64 years, yes.
64 years.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and you know, we're 2.7 away. So, you know, we've already raised the 1.8, but we're figuring with inflation, we got maybe another 2.7 that we have to raise. 2.7 million. That's, you know, we can do that. But you know, it's funny. I mean, Vince, you're such an artist, so you are interpreting all kinds of stuff in there. And yes, but depending how deep you want to be, when you talk to Bickerstaff about how the thought that went into it, at the top, right beyond the door of no return, there is a fountain that they were going to have that has very slow moving water, which speaks to a passivity that was instilled or fostered on the enslaved people. But then, as you move down, he has water going all the way through the through the monument. So that as you get to the fountain and you pass through history, now the water becomes more active because there's movement, there's resistance, there's an electricity going on. So that as you get to the present and you get to people moving up to Northeast Ohio, the water becomes more active. And then at the end, there's this this fountain that springs up every now and then, which speaks of the future where the water is very active. So he wanted to make that kind of that difference. And you could either walk from on top of the hill down so that you're going through history that way, or you could go up the hill like you said and kind of reflect on it that way. So again, it gives you so much to talk about. I mean, the three of us could go there and hang out, and if there are cues and prompts to get this discussion going like that video, now we got this synergy going, right? So that's why it's so important. That's why I'm so excited about it getting done.
Well, and two, it just occurred to me in this moment how the water actually represents us, because we are currency.
See there?
Look at that. I mean, there's so much there, and I want to also underscore the power of the QR codes. When we were in Philadelphia, one of the murals that we observed was called Family Interrupted. And it was something that paid tribute to people who have been incarcerated. And there was one section of the wall if I had time, I would show it to you. But there was one section of the wall where there was a QR code that you could open up on your phone, and you would hear the voice of a 16-year-old boy, 16-year-old young man who was incarcerated telling his story. As I think about that, I think about the power that we could use in this installation to bring history to people through the use of technology.
Absolutely.
A few years ago, I participated in a project where it was like, they call it augmented reality, AR. And what you could do is you could actually place a work of art in virtual reality. So you would come to this site, you would activate a QR code, and it would show you a piece of art. The installation that I did was over on Buckeye, somewhere around 99th or so. And what I put up in this great big field was an image of the Great Pyramid at Giza and the Harem Maquette, which people call the Sphinx. So you could actually come to this corner, activate the QR code, and you can see the image, that fantastic structure right there in the middle of the field. So if you could utilize similar technology to bring history to people who visit the cultural gardens, that maybe that's a down the road thing. That's just me being that creative person that we are as artists, thinking of the possibilities. But the most important thing that we need to do is get the structure completed, and then we can add the frosting and everything at a future point in time.
For sure.
True, but your dreams are part of, you know, the inspiration that we need for, you know, for people to see it happening. And you know, there's so many, like there's water that flows through it, and he talks about the water represents certainly the enslavement that went with the transatlantic slave trade, but then it also represents bodies of water that represented symbols of freedom, like the Ohio River. Once you crossed it, you were free till they passed a law. And then the Great Lakes. Once you could get past Lake Erie and cross over into Canada, you were really free. So that's part of that water coming down. Again, if you have QR cues, you know, where we can talk about that, and you're visiting and you're looking at it on your phone, and now you're learning something, and now you're like mixing it up.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Now, I mean, now stuff is happening. But like you said, that's why we said we gotta get it built first. And then
it's a great idea. I think that's a great idea as well. You know, as far as the QR, because you're giving history and stuff is concerned, it almost can look like remind you of the reflection pool and things like that. And people don't know that's a copy of something that's in Egypt, you know, where they got the whole situation from, you know. See, I wanted to step back when we said something, when we talked about this country and the development of this country and our contributions to this country, you know. It's something that I was writing as well. And I talked about our contributions, and I talked about the free labor, the 200 so plus years or more of free labor. Let me ask a question to you both. If you guys were starting a business and you were afforded the opportunity of having free labor for a whole year, what is the possibilities? How does that increase the possibilities of your success?
That's the blueprint of America, brother. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I'm just saying, but we said for 1 year, if you started a business and you was able to have free labor for 1 year,
and lots of it.
Yes, the likelihood of your success would be off the chart. Now imagine 250 plus years of free labor, and you're producing something, cotton, rice, textiles, exporting, and the things of that nature. What kind of dollars can you put towards infrastructure, towards education, research and development, military? You see, that's why America want to put their chests out and like they the greatest country in the world, and the amenities and the modernization. You're able to do some things like that. That's why places in Europe and stuff like that look a little different from the United States, because they had to get it the old-fashioned way for most of them. But you got 200 plus years of free labor, and you making money, on top of that, So you want to go around there and stick your chest out like these great Americans all over. You better look at, the people who built that, and was responsible. And then, and even today, we're not going to talk about the contributions as well. The internet, the cell phone, we could go on, talk about our contributions. And it's a sad commentary for us to know that so many people from other ethnic groups and our own people as well doesn't have a clue on the contributions, because basically, like what we just said, like I said earlier about other foreigners coming in here and looking down their nose at African Americans like we were just sitting here twiddling our thumbs. They don't know the history. They don't know it wouldn't be in America without us.
Yeah. I know. I was going to mention that, when Vince was talking about the technology, and, we don't know where that's going. I mean, I don't know how many years we are away from holograms to where you could just, press a button or put in your phone or something like that, and an actual image is in front of you, that is meaningful. That may not be that far away.
We're already there, Obie.
Right.
We're already there.
Right. But, I mean, so that is also possible, where you could have a Frederick Douglass, you could have a Frederick Douglass actor who appears in front of you and talks about that, right? There's so many possibilities to it. But what I'm thinking about, and it's tough to sell right now because it's kind of a conservative community. When you ask about the big donors, and I know that big donors, they like to get recognized. If you're going to give $50,000, you say, I want somebody to know that. And my argument is that the old school way of doing that for hundreds of centuries has that you get a marker, right, someplace that somebody has to go to that marker and see your name or whatever. Like, you can see the John D. Rockefeller's obelisk in the cemetery. But you'd have to be there to see it. Now, with the internet, what you can do is, people all around the world could go to AAACG.org. There would be, here are our chief sponsors. And not only do you see your name, but you see a video of you. You're talking into the future. My name is Joe Jones, and I shouldn't use that because that's a real guy's name. My name is Mike Smith, and I started this business in Cleveland, in 1999 with my wife. And you see pictures of it, right? And then here's how it built. And so then your story can be seen all around the world. Now, to me, that's far more exciting than just having a plaque, in Cleveland, Ohio, where only one person can see it. But I have to show that, I have to demonstrate that in a model to some of our wealthier community members, to where they buy into it and they go, okay, well, that would be enough, that would be enough for me to get the claim that I want to get.
Okay. So Obie, again, just going back to Philadelphia, went to their African American Museum. They have television monitors that are portrait oriented as opposed to landscape oriented. And then they have these historical figures that are doing monologues. Now, if you know about AI, you can generate AI models that do the same thing. Mouth is moving the way a human's mouth is moved. It's hard to tell unless you have a trained eye or perhaps a certain level of understanding, but you can look at it and see that it's AI generated. But I'm saying all that to say that what you just described, it's possible to do now. Somebody could get that QR code, open up a digital person that is saying whatever you program it to say, whatever the narrative, whatever the message is, it's right there. We can do that today.
Yeah.
But so for what I see here and imagine, and using an imagination of a finished product there, I see our school kids and people who might be throwing a function being so creative and coming up with so many different themes on site. You know what I mean? Dealing with the Atlantic, slave trade, or in regalia. You say you're having a function there and everybody's dressed like 1865, at the function, you know what I mean? At the, I see all kind of themes and representations of displaying our history could be a part of that whole scheme there. And that's something that would be off the charts, in doing, and also, I just want to let people know, like our good brother McMillan did approach me and talked to me about it. So we're gonna, what I should have said, and I will say it another time for our terrestrial listeners, about listening out for some fundraisers to help with some of the administrative things. Some of the fundraisers may not give us that big dollars that we want, but it can help with promoting, marketing, and even hiring ground crew in order to pass out flyers or to knock on doors or to set up tables at different events, that you can give people a little something for their time to sit out there and help promote it. So we talked about comedy show. In my mind, I'm looking at and Vince can even work on that as well, but a concert, fundraiser concerts and things of that nature that we can do in order to raise some dollars.
I just had another idea, Obie.
Mm-hmm.
You just bringing it all out of us today. The fact that you have this, one, historic place, and two, you have an ability to convey information about history. This could be something where you could have schools coming from different locations, not just city of Cleveland. You could have that school from Bay Village.
Mm-hmm.
Come to Cleveland, come to this location and get a history lesson.
Yep.
Leveraging technology, all of that right there.
Sure.
So what you're doing is, and I'm thinking of Destination Cleveland and the others that promote tourism and whatnot. This could be a tourism location, and it could benefit the children, but it could also benefit adults who didn't get these classes when they were coming through the education system. And we talk about the importance of history all the time. It's one of the most important aspects of our existence. So again, so much potential here. A shout out to Lou Hobbs, who is watching us on YouTube right now. Thanks for your engagement, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. But there's just so much potential here, Obie, and I'm really thankful to you for having the energy and the drive and the ambition to create this reality for Cleveland, because it is essentially important to our community. So kudos to you, my brother.
Yeah, for the cultural community, naming ceremonies, going through that whole ritual of naming, going through the door, if you was trying to change the names to African names, and it's just so many things to do. Like I said, I see it as a tourist piece, and I think the QR codes would be really, really special there. It was, it was still the show, to be honest with you. It would be the highlight of the MLK Drive. And we need something. You tell me what ethnic group of people need that the most? You know what I mean? We need that.
Yeah. Well, again, I just go back to the importance of art and culture, and I focused on the artistic or the cultural aspect of the installation, but then there's also the artistic aspect of it. The design, that's art. The execution is art, so if for no other reason, us deciding to dedicate a larger portion of our city resources. And you touched on it a little bit, Obie, when you talked about money going to the police department, ARPA money, and so forth. I just read during the past week that there was an allocation for an anti-violence program that was ARPA dollars. And I could be wrong about this, but most of the money was unspent and it was taken back.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, it was on Signal Cleveland or The Land, or one of the alternative publications that fill in the gap that the plain dealer's missing. But just the idea that we spend all this money on public safety, and I get it. We talk about this all the time, Brother Antonio, this emphasis on public safety. But it's troubling to me because we want more money to pay more police officers and pay overtime and all that other kind of stuff, but we're not getting to the root of the issue, and that is why the police have to be called in the first place. And I think we should be taking a more proactive approach in dealing with people on the front end so that they're not so traumatized in life that they want to take a gun and shoot somebody or knock somebody over the head to get some money. You know, many times people resort to those things because they don't see any other way to do it. If the jobs aren't there, if they're not getting the educational support that they need to be successful in life, then those things happen. But we have proven over and over and over again the value of art to our student population. And if we can empower people through the arts, we'll have a much better city. You're going to be grooming artists. You're going to be grooming musicians. You're going to be grooming people who can make a meaningful contribution to our society if you give them something to do, not hire more police. I don't think more police is the answer. The people might think that, because the people might think that the more police officers they have, the more secure they are. Maybe they have that misunderstanding. But I think we need more art. I think we need more culture. And we've proven 2022, $500 million in this local economy as a result of art and culture. So if we amplify art and culture in this city, we can reduce the need for police officers on our streets to protect us from each other. That's my perspective.
Well, you know, I think these are all pieces of the puzzle, and like you said a little while earlier, Vince, that you know it's all about finishing this garden. That's why, to me, the focus is finish it. Once it's there, now the question, one of the challenges is parking, because it's very hard to park around there. There really is no parking space, but there is a lot of unused land around there that could be developed. But once you have the vehicle there and you have people coming there, now you're driving demand for some developer is going to say, well, I can do a parking space. Now we can talk about that. We could talk about the African American Museum, which has been, that's another story that's been going up and down in Cleveland for years. You could have that at the top of the hill, so that on a rainy day or a snowy day in Cleveland, you're going to the garden, you're kind of looking at, around it, but as it gets cold, you go up into the museum and you see all these artifacts. It's all tied together. But for me, the big thing is to get that spectacular thing done, and then all this other stuff opens up.
Well, until we get that parking situation resolved, just park on Wheelock.
Right.
And walk down the hill and walk back up.
And I tell people, I tell people that, that we have Wait Over Wednesdays, and there is no parking lot with tens of thousands of people. Where do they park? Well, they find spots. The Italian Garden has opera at the garden. Where do all those hundreds of people park? They find spots. I mean, there are spots. But it would drive demand for a larger, bigger parking area, which could cause a greater development, because someone says, well, I want to have a restaurant there because people will want to eat. So now you've got economic development. But again, I'm a dreamer.
Yes, we'll keep on dreaming, brother.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
That's how things get done.
Yeah.
Vision. It's about vision.
Right.
And our people have a lack of, at times it seems like a vision, because we can find ourselves being stuck in this rut and stuck in this one way of thinking, and it limits the possibility. Like I say, sometimes I say on the radio, to manipulate consciousness, manipulate possibilities and power. So if you limit those things, you're limiting your possibilities and your power. So that's why history and all of that is so important. Yeah, but we have to understand that. You got to be inspired to understand. It's all your present and your future is set up by your past. It's all relative and related. And you anybody who come to you and start talking to you about the non-importance of a past or history, just walk away from them, because they don't know what they're talking about. Your past sets up everything. So for us to do this and leave something for our children is ultra important.
So Obie, one more time, tell us, let's finish it.
Yep, let's finish it. And remember, AAACG.org. That's where you go. Yeah, we're gonna have more. There's gonna be more material up there. And I'll tell you, please, people sign up as volunteers. Whatever you can do. I need people who can help me with spreadsheets. I need people who can help me with mailing out thank yous, communications, all of that stuff. So you may not have a lot of money, but if you have some time, we can use you.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna leave it there.
All right.
Obie Shelton, Executive Director of the Association of African American Cultural Gardens. Don't go online looking for African American Cultural Gardens because it ain't gonna bring you to Cleveland. Right. Association of African American Cultural Gardens, AAACG.org.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Check it out. Step up. Volunteer, donate, whatever you got to do, but get involved. Thank you for joining us on 360 Info Network today.
Thank you so much, brothers.
All right.
All right, my brother.
As always, know yourself, love yourself, be yourself, and make today your absolute best day. Peace, y'all.
Peace.